All right. Welcome, EJ from Nauti Exposures on the TripOutside podcast. Thanks for joining me today, man. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having us on.
Cool. You are a brand new outfitter in the Naples, Fort Myers area, and you lead eco tours and kayaking, take people out to the Everglades, and I absolutely love all the things that you offer. But tell us a little bit more about some of the specific tours that you offer in the area and why you got started last year and what was your reason behind starting Naughty Exposures.
Uh, the so we started October of 2019, and the biggest reason for starting is just I've always loved the outdoors ever since I was a kid, and especially being on the water. And Florida's so unique with the different wildlife that you get to see, and even just the vegetation that you get to see while you're out. And the great thing about being in Naples is you do get the benefit of you've got the Everglades, the mangroves, kind of the backwater areas, but then you also have the beaches that you can go to. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And it opens up an entire, just a plethora of wildlife that you get to see while you're out on the water. And that's what we focus on, and is trying to get people out into the wildlife and getting to get kind of an up close personal view with the various birds, aquatic animals, even some of the land animals that we'll come across from time to time.
That's super cool. I love that you turned your passion into a business and something that is very exciting to us too. And what you're doing is especially amazing because you're not only getting people active and physically active, getting outdoors, but you're also in that same trip and that tour, allowing them to see so much wildlife instead of just being on a lake and paddling for exercise. You kind of forget about the exercise and the effort you're putting in when you're looking at turtles or manatees or alligators, which is super cool. So, what is some of the wildlife that is around South Florida? I probably named off a few of those, but I probably don't
Yeah,
even begin
you
to
hit on
scratch
a
the
lot of it.
surface.
And like I said, a lot of it depends on where we go out of. So if we go out of Fort Myers, we actually go out of Manatee Park. So what you'll see up there is obviously a ton of manatees this time of year.
Okay,
We'll also see gators up there, a ton of different birds and turtles and that kind of thing. And then as we come further south, my favorite spot to actually paddle is the it's out of the Cocohatchee River Park, and it's in the
okay,
backwaters behind Delnor Wiggins State Park and Barefoot Beach. So back there, you get manatees, you get a ton of different birds, but then you also have the dolphins come out and play. So like we were out yesterday, and there were a couple dolphins just playing just a few feet off the shore of Barefoot Beach. So that's great. And then of course, as you get further inland, down more towards the Everglades, is where you get all the alligators and various snakes and that kind of thing. And of course, we'll have families of raccoons come out and play at low tide out of the
yeah.
mangroves, and so it's you just never know what you're going to run into while you're out there. We actually had a bear out on one of the last tours that we did out of Port of the Islands back around Thanksgiving. There was actually a bear hanging out in the mangroves on the one part of it. So
Oh, that's
just
so
a
funny.
really cool experience.
Yeah, the diversity of wildlife and the density in Florida is so remarkable. It is such a tropical place. It's the U.S.'s version of like Costa Rica, and I think the more we appreciate it, the outdoors aspect of Florida, the more I'm inspired by it every single time. The more and more I learn. Where exactly are the mangroves in Florida? What area does that tour lead you to?
So which mangroves do we go into?
Yeah.
Or so we'll go down. We'll go into the mangroves down at Port of the Islands, which is kind of on the cusp of the Everglades.
Okay.
And it actually, if you follow the channel all the way down, it brings you into the start of the 10,000 Islands.
Okay.
So we'll go back into the mangroves there. We also, I mean, anywhere along the shoreline of Southwest Florida, you'll have some mangroves to get into. So down near Marco Island, we'll go. It's called Isla Capri Paddle Park, and it's a lot of
Okay.
the really cool tunnels and trails that people kind of come to associate with when they think of a
Yeah.
mangrove tour. Cocohatchee has the mangroves. Now it's a more wide open stretch of mangroves, so you don't have the tight tunnels to try to get through and all of that. So it
Okay.
just, like I said, pretty much everywhere we go, there are mangroves, with the exception of the Imperial River in Bonita and Manatee Park don't have a lot of mangroves, but they make up for it with the wildlife.
Got it. And then uh, I suppose paddling with alligators is some people probably are really excited about it. Other people are probably fearful of it.
Yep,
Uh,
there's nobody in between. It's people either
yeah,
call up and they'll go, "All right, we absolutely do not want to see alligators," and that's fine. But then we have other people that that's what they want to go out to see. And the thing with the alligators is they are super shy and incredibly lazy. So
yeah,
you get within 10 feet of them, and 9 out of 10 of them are going to take off, and the other one is just going to hang out there and look at you, like, what are you doing out here? This
right.
is my spot. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely polar opposites. Nobody's on the fence like, well, I wouldn't mind to see an alligator. It's one or the other.
That's so funny you say that because I'm definitely in the polar opposite. I'm on the extreme that wants to see them, but just because I think they're so cool. They're like
Oh, me
these
too. They're my
prehistoric
favorite animal.
creatures. Yeah.
I mean, they're living dinosaurs. Like, come on,
Yes.
where else can you go to get to see that kind of thing? So,
And like paddle so close to them, obviously not disturb them and get too close, but like sometimes you're paddling around, you come around a corner and there's like a giant 10-foot alligator just chilling on a log and it doesn't care that you're there. Yeah, I love that about like how they just sunbathe all day unless they're in the water and then
yeah.
even they're so shy.
Oh yeah, they really are. And I mean, we've had so we went out just personally down on the Turner River, and it was during mating season, and we came around a bend, and we thought it was the bank when we were first coming around the bend, but it turned out to be the biggest gator I've ever seen in my life. He
Wow.
truly was just the bank, but he just laid there and looked at us, and
Oh,
mating
that's
season
cool.
is the one time you kind of want to avoid the alligators, but I'm like
Yeah.
you, I want to go see him whenever I can. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're it's a easier way to see them. It's a unique way from the water instead of, you see them, pictures of them on golf courses and all that stuff in Florida, but seeing them in the water is just so unique and seeing them in their habitat and see how they live and how non-threatening they are. I think uh, videos and news publications don't always do them justice because you always hear stories about them eating a dog or you always hear the aggressive side of the alligator, but they're so chill and calm and just, minding their own business. I think they're just cool to see.
right. Well, and that's one of the things we talk about on the tours involving the gators is most of the time when you get a gator that becomes aggressive, it's where the humans have interacted and kind of created the issue. And that's kind of what we try to educate people on. Like they're great. They are amazing creatures, but let's let them be the way they are and just appreciate them. Don't go feeding them. Don't that's where you get the problems. Where next thing you know, they've grabbed Fifi and taken her for a swim.
Yeah, they start associating humans with food. So we have
Right.
to try to break that association. And it's
Exactly.
actually, it just applies to all wildlife. I just had Wyoming wildlife advocates on as a podcast just a couple of days ago, and they were talking about the same issues with, wildlife in Wyoming, whether it's bears and um, other predators or larger creatures. Is sounds like it applies the same for alligators and just wildlife in general. Appreciate it from afar and leave it alone.
Well, absolutely, because alligators have a natural fear of humans, and they don't want to. Again, back to the being lazy. They don't want to deal with anything as big as we are to have to
Yeah,
try and eat when they have smaller food sources
right,
that
it's a
they
lot
can.
of work.
Right, exactly. So once you get one that's become aggressive, it's solely a result of the human interaction with it. They lose the fear.
Right. So what's the best time of year? You said the manatees. This is the best time of year to try to come down. Also a great time to visit Florida. I just checked your weather. It's like 74 degrees in the middle of
Oh,
January.
today is absolutely perfect. Yeah, and
uh,
yesterday was great as well. So, yeah, this is the best time of year for manatees.
okay.
Because as the Gulf temperature drops, that's when they like to come more inland,
Okay.
back into the inner waterways. Now we did see a lot this summer at Cocohatchee,
Okay.
because they will come into the backwaters to mate in the summer and everything else. So, and then of course the more brackish areas, they'll come into those because they have to drink fresh water. So you can still see them throughout the year, but this is the time where you really get the big groups of them coming into the backwater areas.
Okay. And are you guys running tours all year round or are you closed at all or,
Nope, we
or
stay
any
open
time of
all
year?
year round.
That's really
Um,
cool.
yeah, which because there are some companies in Florida, because obviously, especially where we are, it's very seasonal.
Hmm.
Um, but the summers, I love the summer in Florida. It gets very hot, but that's when you get to go out and really enjoy everything because there's no one around. So
Okay, so
so
it's
we
the
like
opposite of other places, which is cool.
right, exactly right.
Okay, and I think you can really appreciate the water during that time too, because when you're hot, the water actually is useful, and you can spend a lot more time at the beach and jumping, or some of the beautiful rivers that are around.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right.
So, can you guys, what's the process for getting into the Everglades National Park? That's a park that's evaded us for too long. Even though we lived in Georgia, we never shamefully had a chance to make it a visit there. But do you guys lead tours through the Everglades, and what does that look like?
We lead tours near the Everglades. There's actually very few companies that are allowed to operate within the Everglades because it is a
Okay.
national park. Um, but now, just personally, you can go into the Everglades, and the great thing is there's two sides to the Everglades. So if you go on the Miami side, you've got the sawgrass and kind of what everyone kind of associates, and then on our side is where you have the mangroves. Um,
Right.
so that's where you kind of get two different worlds in the Everglades in that sense. But yeah, we go down near there, and there are like I said, there are a couple companies that can operate out of there, but they limit the number of companies that are actually allowed to operate within the park on a year-to-year basis, just to kind of control the flow of traffic through there.
Okay. I see a lot of photography tours that you guys lead. Is that uh, anytime you can bring your camera out, or and then you guys like teach photography along on the tour, or
Yeah,
take people on the spots where they can take some good pictures?
yeah, that was the other part of it because photography is another passion that we have, and so we always tell people if they want to bring their cameras, we'll try to get them into the best spots for up close wildlife pictures, and of course if they're novice photographers, they're just getting started, we'll definitely walk them through the best ways to use their camera, the best settings, and the ways to turn out the best pictures while they're out on the water.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I think that's something we're all trying to do. Whereas when we're out on the trip to capture the moment that we're seeing. So that's cool that you guys offer that opportunity to bring that back after the trip is over.
Oh, absolutely. And then we on each tour, even if they don't want to take a camera, because some people are so scared of tipping over, or you don't want to have a $2,000 camera and have it go for a swim. So we always have our cameras with us, and we'll try to take pictures and make sure to get them out to the people that have gone on the tour. That way, too, they can kind of enjoy being in the moment, and they don't lose
Yeah,
it behind the camera.
yeah, I would be signing up for that one. I just want to paddle and not get my phone out
Right.
if I can. Right? Yeah, it's so much better. So what was it like starting a business in 2019, and how did the pandemic affect you? I'm really curious about what your first year of business has been like, starting an outdoor business.
Yeah. So obviously, like everyone else, we had the trials and tribulations. We went through a lockdown. Where we are, we locked down for the entire month of March, basically.
Hmm.
Um, but the one benefit we have that some businesses don't have is that we are outdoors and it's naturally social distanced. So
Yeah.
as things started to open back up a little bit in Florida, we actually saw an uptick in clients coming through because number one, the East Coast stayed locked down. So Miami, Fort Lauderdale, that area, they're much more densely populated, and they had their restrictions were much tighter than what we had over here in Naples. So they would
Hmm.
actually come across the state and go out with us since they couldn't do anything on their side of the state. But we did see a big shift too from a lot of people wanted to get away from tours a little bit and kind of stick close to their family groups. So we started initially we didn't offer rentals, and that's when
Hmm.
we started kind of offering rentals because that's just kind of what people wanted to do at that time to
Right.
stay away from everyone. So
That's
yeah, it
super
was
cool.
yeah.
And hopefully, um, there's been a positive side to this year, is people seeing the value of getting outdoors, and hopefully they keep up that habit and unplug more often and get out for
Well, and
paddles.
that's just it. I mean, we had people that have lived in Florida their entire lives that had never been out on the water. They had never, and it's like I said, it's a short trip from Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but they had never seen this side of the state. And
Hmm.
it's so much different from the west coast of Florida to the east coast that it opened their eyes to a whole new world that was an hour away from them they had never seen.
Yeah, that's so interesting. The East Coast is, bigger cities, crowded, beaches, a lot more tourists go there to, it's definitely been marketed as tourist place, but then on the West Coast, just you said like an hour away, it's so much more relaxed, so much more wildlife, and a completely different Florida, and
Yeah,
it's so
yeah, it
so
really
close.
is.
Yeah, that's super cool that people were able to see it and hopefully grow some parts of the wildlife and the natural places in Florida.
Right.
Um, so with kayaking, if somebody's never tried it, they're nervous about getting into a kayak. How is it a beginner friendly tour that you guys offer? Can anyone come out there? Do you offer kind of single, tandem, sit on top? What are the different types of kayaks they can go into? Do you give them a quick lesson before they start, or I guess what I'm trying to say is, because anyone just show up and take one of your tours, or do they need to have prior paddling experience?
No, no experience is needed. We actually, that's one of the things we pride ourselves on, and we've taken out people as young as 2 and 3 years old up to 85 years old. So
Oh,
we will before each trip out, we'll go through a quick lesson on proper paddling techniques and safety techniques. We do use a sit on top style of kayak, so that way, if somebody does unexpectedly go swimming, it's easier to get them back into. They don't have the panic of being trapped inside a sit-in kayak when they roll over. So we do prefer to go with the sit on tops, but um, we'll go through the lesson with everybody. We'll get them out, and we'll always find an area right at the beginning of the tour to let them get comfortable. Especially for
mhm.
people, even people that have paddled a lot solo, it's a totally different ball game when you start to paddle tandem. So we'll let them kind of
Yeah,
get used to that, and then we'll start out on the tour. And if somebody, we've had scenarios where somebody wasn't necessarily physically able to paddle themselves around, so I'll jump in and ride tandem with them, just so they can still get the experience, go out with their family, but they don't have to exert the effort to try to make it through it. And now there have been a few times where we'll catch some wind and we'll have to tow some people, but for the most part, it it's not nearly as scary as everyone thinks it is. And about 10 minutes into it, everybody loses that fear and just really starts to appreciate the experience of being out on the water and that in the areas that you can't get to any other way.
yeah. That's amazing how you enable uh, almost everyone. It's so inclusive to let everyone get outdoors. And kayaking is one of those sports that you're right. Even if you don't have any prior experience, it's a basic 30-minute. How to get in and out properly, have your PFD on properly, and how to paddle. And within a few minutes, most people can get a hang of it and start enjoying it within 30 minutes or 40 minutes, where it's not the case with some of the other sports out there. So
Right.
uh,
Absolutely.
it's a great beginner sport. And one thing we personally love about kayaking is, once you've invested in your kayak and your PFD, I mean, you can go pretty much anywhere, not have to spend money every single time you're doing the activity. It's probably one of the most cost-effective activities, uh, to get into. Either that, even with like road biking or mountain biking, you still have gear maintenance and keeping up all the equipment. But with kayaking, it's like it's a one-time investment, and then you can really keep going for years and years to come for a very low
Yeah.
cost.
And that's what I'll talk to anybody about this that wants to get into it and they kind of go out with us to see if it's something they enjoy. Like you said, it's a one-time upfront investment, and then from there, it's so much more convenient than owning a boat or you're driving down the road, and especially luckily living in Florida, there's water everywhere. So you're just
Right.
going for a drive. Next thing you know, you see an area you haven't been before. You just jump out. You're on the water in 5 minutes, and you can just go
Yeah.
explore.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, so there are so many benefits to it, and in terms of a workout, it's such low impact, but it's such a great workout. So it's not like when you go running and you've got that the jarring to your to your joints and everything else. It's you get a nice solid steady workout without the intense pain that comes from some of the other sports out there.
Oh, that's a great point, and I haven't thought about that before. You can really keep it going, um, yeah, for many years without having that repetitive impact, and you can work around a lot of your issues too. So if you have, you know, knee issues or whatever it is, this is a great activity to get into, still get a cardio workout. And you can kind of alternate a lot of these things. I mean, you can even find kayaks that you can pedal instead of having to paddle a lot. So there's a lot of variability to make things easier, and it's a easier, lower impact activity.
Absolutely.
That's cool. Well, thank you guys for starting a business right before the pandemic that allowed people to get outdoors, because without outfitters like you and people like you that have taken the life decision to go into an outdoor focused business that gets people healthy, get people outdoors, we all wouldn't have these opportunities to try more and more of these activities either where we live or wherever we're traveling to. So thank you so much for that, Edward.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a dream so far.